recently ranked as 5 booms by the Costco guys. I can't even say it with a straight face. Brought to you by Garage Gym Radio. It is the Home Gym Podcast. My name is Jason, or man who parks in gym, and I'm here with my buddy Mark. Flex Marks the Spot on social media. Mark, man, so many things have happened since the last we spoke. We'll just get right into it, I guess. Last we spoke we had noticed there was a new release of a RowErgs product, the RowErgs Kleva. I'm sure everybody's heard it by now, and I don't even know when this episode will get uploaded, but I trust that by the time it is, everyone will be as mentally exhausted with this story as what I feel like I am right now. But we talked about it last time. It was kind of just showed up on the RowErgs site. I think I had made a kind of a backhanded comment about how RowErgs is really good at being heavily inspired by someone else's product and then making it look like their own. And we kind of compared and contrast which one might be better in different circumstances and things like that. And since that time, Steve and Sierra Kleva, I'm sorry, I don't still 100 days home gym con.
I got corrected in the comments. The last time around, I forgot who it was, but they're like, I'm pretty sure Mark's pronouncing that wrong. I was saying Kleva, right? And I'm pretty sure I might have heard Coop maybe pronounce it that way. Maybe I don't remember who, but
I've heard it pronounced Kleva, and Kleva. I think so. So I'm gonna shake the man's hand at Home Gym Con, and I'm going to ask him very politely to pronounce it for me, and then I will know for the rest of my life. I'll hear it straight from the horse's mouth.
Yep. Until then, I'll default back to a Kleva.
I will just say all 3 versions because I'm non-committal. But anyway, so we had that little conversation. Since then, Steve has released the video that I feel like everybody has probably seen, kind of giving his perspective. I don't think anybody knew that they were in talks. I mean, I was really shocked. I feel like there was when Kleva and Rep first announced their partnership, I feel like there was a lot of people that had been at Home Gym Con that were like, if you had been there, you would have seen the writing on the walls. They were like best friends, or whatever. People were kind of, in hindsight, speculation, right? It wasn't like there was any talk leading up to or anything like that. They were just like, they were really, you could tell that they had
the proximity of the booths and they were like employees on the Rep side were over in the Kleva booth, pretty regularly. Kleva had Rep plates on their trap bar prototype, so I mean, looked like there was definitely, at least something sort of,
Yeah. And so anyway, we learned recently there's kind of a new layer of complexity to this whole thing, and it adds also with it a layer of scum to your RowErgs products, right? To RowErgs right now. And I'm going to let you kind of explain it a little bit further or get us going here.
Yeah. So the Spark notes here. So like Jason mentioned there's like a 4, almost 5-minute video on the Kleva built Instagram page where Steve Kleva is basically kind of coming out. He's like, hey, we didn't really plan on doing this, but we're going to kind of give our side of things here, in which case there was a whole RowErgs side, right? So what happened was, from my recollection, is I guess I don't remember if RowErgs had approached them or they approached RowErgs. I don't remember what happened first, but regardless, there were some preliminary talks there about maybe doing some sort of like licensing deal, or maybe doing something like a partnership, kind of like what RowErgs has with like the Pritchett pad, right? Or maybe even like the RowErgs or the Rep X Kleva, type thing, where they didn't really go into details as to what the deal entailed, but there was mutual interest, I guess, in something there, right? And I guess it got to the point where they were sharing RowErgs had asked for the CAD files for the product, and I think that's where a lot of people are kind of getting hung up, is like, they shared the CAD files, that's the secret sauce as to what makes the product. Although I feel like if RowErgs really wanted to reverse engineer this, right, they could have just ordered one and done it without the CAD files. Like, I mean, it's not like it's a tech device, but I think the part that I think is the part that a lot of people are glossing over is I remember he mentioned in there that they also exchange like sales information and like financials behind like margins and cost to manufacture and like things like that. And I think that that's the part that is a little sus on Rogue's part. It's like if they had access to all of that information, regardless, that was exchanged, and then from there, I guess the process was like as to like what the partnership going forward would look like. It kind of extended over the course of like 9 months, I think is what I recall. Like communication was very, very sparse. There was an NDA signed, or there was and on top of that, I guess like the Klevas, they on top of that, they liquidated a lot of like basically all of their inventory because like at this point they were struggling to keep up with demand. As all of us know, they would only open up orders for X period of time, shut off orders, and then try to manufacture those as quickly as they could while maintaining quality. So this was kind of like, is in Steve's word, a lifeline for them. So to kind of keep things afloat, they liquidated everything they had, hoping that this Rogue thing was going to kind of keep propelling things forward. And then I guess at that point, Rogue kind of like almost ghosted them. Like they were really like either non-committal or just not responding, right? And I think at that point is kind of when like they might have saw the writing on the wall where they're like, okay, this either isn't a priority or it's not looking like it's going to happen. So they started looking at other partners, and that's where I think they approached Rep in that case, and Rep X Kleva was born, right? And then shortly after, the NDA that Rogue had signed with Kleva had expired, and that's when those new products dropped from Rogue. So that's kind of the general gist from my recollection. I don't know. Is there anything that I missed?
I mean, that feels like the general gist from my recollection also. It's a tough spot. Feel like, I mean, I've been in a similar situation with Titan before, not to the same extent. Because, for me, I don't have a business. I didn't put myself out there with an idea and invest a bunch of time and effort and money and do all that. I mean, there's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears in life that they have put into creating those products and that brand and excuse me, and that stuff. And so I don't have that deep of a connection to this story, but I do have a similar. I mean, I understand how that feelings are with that, right? The emotion that's drawn with it. I've been in a situation where I was approached by Titan, right? And Titan over a kind of a thing that a little GHD
over a
thing,
DIY product that you put together,
DIY
right?
product that I had put together using parts. Anyway, so they had approached me. They were interested in it. They had me sign an NDA. I didn't know a lot, but I will tell you, I didn't trust. It's not that I didn't trust Titan. I just didn't know what I could and couldn't trust. And I knew, at the time they had their whole reputation was about stealing ideas, stealing Rogue, stealing whatever. Right. And that's what, and so I wouldn't talk to him without a conversation. I talked to the guy on the phone a couple of times. He felt trustworthy. He felt persuasive. It was a good conversation. I felt good moving forward with it. They had me sign an NDA. They had sent me a free GHD of theirs to use and to keep and all that stuff while they wanted me to send mine to them, which I did. It cost me a few $100 or whatever to send it to. It was about the same price as probably, I mean, just a little, it's like I got a discount on the GHD. But I looked at it like it was an investment opportunity. I told him up front, I don't have a patent on this, but if I need to, would that help me? Can you give me some ideas, some insight? I mean, he gave me a lot of good, I felt like at the time, a lot of good information about even like felt like a dad. You know what I mean? He was even giving me advice
Like
about.
took you under wing, right?
I mean, it was like he was giving me advice about how to negotiate a deal. You know what I mean?
Right.
He was like, it could be to your advantage. It depends, on what it would cost for us to produce. And he gave me some numbers that he felt like it would be so that I could determine whether or not it was worth my time to send it to him and stuff. So I felt like I had a good working relationship before I ever even sent it, or at least a good foundation. Right.
Right. And even then, like you mentioned, like Titan's reputation at the time, even more so than now, was ripping off products. So it's like, hey,
Right.
if Titan's going to make this, like less likely that it's going to be ripped off from someone else right at that point.
Yeah. And so, it's the same kind of a thing. I sent it off. I didn't hear anything for a long time. I didn't want to sound like a jerk and give, I felt like they were probably busy and stuff. And I would reach out. I wouldn't hear anything for a while. And then I randomly get a response that would just kind of, let me know they still have it. They're still whatever. Just a very long time went by, a very long time. I started getting kind of like, and I would reach out to some of the other guys that I knew, like PhenoX guy. He has that leg press thing that they have, right? That was his concept, and Titan makes that. You know what I'm talking about? The rack attached.
Yeah, the rack attached leg press that goes on the J cups.
Yeah. And so I contacted him, talked through it with him. He kind of reassured me that this is like their standard process. It takes a long time at this and that. And so I kind of understand how that can be, you know what I mean? Like even with Rogue, I understand that. I mean, I relate to that part of the story and stuff, and even sharing all the information with them. You're like, oh yeah. I mean, they need to know that if they're going to do it, they need to know what does it cost me? And is this going to be something that they want to invest in? And you feel like, and again, I don't know anything, and I don't know how much they know about the business or anything like that either, but it sounds consistent with what I felt like I went through at the time. The difference between my experience, the main difference between my experience and theirs, aside from the fact that theirs is a whole ass company, right? With like I said, time, effort, energy, money, blood, sweat, tears. They put everything into this. This was their, this is what their thing. And mine was just some shit I threw together from the closet or whatever. But the other main difference was there was a time. Now they had me, they came back at me with it, and he was like, man, we're having a really hard time because you don't have a patent. And I was like, okay, I'll get a patent. If I get a patent, we can do whatever. And they were like, yeah. And I was like, all right. So I put in the paperwork to do a, what do they call it? The provisionary patent. Yeah, the provisional patent or whatever. I put in the paperwork for that, paid some money to get that all written up and everything, sent it over to them, and waited for a little while, and then sent a couple more follow-ups or another follow-up or something. I don't know exactly how many, but I did reach out a couple of times. And then like kind of the same timeline, 9-10 months, something like that, after the whole thing had initiated, right? I got a message from him in response to one of my inquiries that was basically just said, we're not going to move forward with it. We've decided that, we've got too many GHDs as it is. And I was just like, well, that's weird, because they, at the time they only had the one GHD that they sent to me, and this one was completely different and stuff, and so I had, responded and kind of, asked, if you would reconsider. I really think this one would be good product for you because, and kind of outlined the benefits for the home gym, right? Because a GHD, man, it takes up as much space as a freaking smart car or whatever. This one didn't. And so I really thought it would have been at the time, it probably would have been. They didn't have the products that are out now back in 2020 or whenever this was. But they did, and sorry that took me so long to get to this point, but they did tell me that they weren't going to do it right before. And then, what was it, like a month or so, they had released a different version that did some of the same things. Like in turn, it was a different, it wasn't.
It incorporated elements of yours, right?
Felt like that. That's what it felt like. I don't know. I've gotten to a place with it today where I'm really okay. I'm really good. I thought there was a time where I was like, F Titan and, wanted people to hear my story and all that kind of stuff. And actually told it on one of the Garage Gym Radio podcasts. And Steve had actually reached out to me at that time and kind of let me know, hey man, I've been through something similar. I really feel for you. And it sucks for, I know that this is something that's been, that he's been passionate about. This isn't just first, I know that, this was a couple of years ago. I'm just some dude, and he had reached out and did that and stuff. And so I know that even for Inventors and IP and all that stuff, like I know that is something that he's been very passionate about. So this whole thing, I know that he would have gone into the opportunity with Rogue with caution. I suspect that just based on one conversation that I had with him at that time about it. I know that when you go into these conversations with these companies, even if you're apprehensive at all, there is, you're already a risk taker just by nature if you're someone who is building products that out of your garage and all that kind of stuff. And so does feel like there's an element of risk. I don't see how anybody could. I do feel like he's a victim in this, and whether if he's a victim of evil Rogue or if he's a victim of just a shitty process. You know what I mean?
Right.
That companies use, and that Rogue just happens to be one of them. And and it's like others have said here, it's a choice, right? They could have communicated with the guy and not strung him along and let him know kind of where they were with it. You know what I mean? Like whatever it may be. If the ultimate decision was we're not going to go with your products because it's not profitable, or we've decided after looking at the CAD, man. I mean, I honestly think that the CAD is just, I don't even know why they would need that. I mean, I feel like you mentioned you could order that. I feel like you could go on the home gym community page and say, under, not as Bill Henniger, of course, but go on there and say, hey man, I'm thinking about ordering this. Can you give me these measurements? And 1,000 people would be on there happy to give you the measurements. You know what I mean? Like, I don't even know if you would need to buy it or whatever. You could draw that thing up from a picture. But anyway, I digress again. I just, whatever it is, whatever their side of it is, whatever Rogue their process is, it doesn't have to be shitty. And I feel like it left a bad taste in everybody's mouth, and rightfully so. Do I feel like it's time to boycott and cancel and all that kind of stuff? I mean, that's up to you. I mean, or not you personally, but that's up to the if you're. I mean, I think it's an emotional thing. I think it's good for people to know that, especially those people who might, be inventors or people who aspire to have a product with a company and that kind of stuff. I mean, that's something that a lot of people in the home gym space, I mean, we all have unique problems. Sometimes our problems aren't as unique as we think they are. And when we find unique solutions to those problems that everybody has, or that a lot of people have, that's where the ingenuity comes in, and that's where new products come from and stuff like that. And we are often very excited for that when someone can solve a problem that we have with something simple or whatever. And we do like to celebrate that. And it makes it really hard when it does suck when you have these aspirations of like, man, I can do something with this. I can make something of it that changes whatever, and then somebody kind of screws you around with it. So
Yeah, and I mean, like this whole thing, like obviously Rogue didn't do anything illegal, and I'm sure they probably they definitely won't probably put out anything like a statement about this. Like
probably not.
they'll probably just wait for it to blow over at this point, especially because reps involved. Like if we kind of go back to that mutant metal situation, like it was not quite an exact scenario, right? Like where they were already in talks, but because of the home gym mob that kind of formed, like it was surprising, to be honest, that Rogue actually decided to go to work with Chris on Mutant Metals, and kind of offering up like an olive branch to kind of work with him a little bit there, right? But I think with that whole thing, Rogue actually took a situation that could have reflected negatively on them, and actually they kind of made it out as a positive, right? And I think from a brand standpoint for the home gym users, like the very niche market that we are, like that reflected really great on them. And I like, depending on how they handle this, if they just let it try to let it die down, it could be something that maybe you won't like immediately affect their margins down the line, but like it could be something that does affect their brand image for a lot of the diehards, especially like in the home gym community, right? Like there's a really core group of people there that anytime there's a newbie that comes in, they ask about anything. They're like, oh, rogue everything, right? But like with something like this out there, like then there's going to be people who never forget, and they're going to kind of start going in there and be like, yeah, like maybe not Rogue because they steal products, right? And like little things like that, I just kind of snowball over time. But I mean, I don't know. I'm just kind of speculating.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a fair speculation. I think there are groups of people today, right now, while it's at its peak, that do not care. You know what I mean? Like, have told you this. I talked about this before, right? Like in my personal life today, one of the very relevant kind of, I don't know whose statistic this is, and I know it's not a real one, but about how 50% of people don't care about your problems, and the other 50% of people are glad that you have them. That at some point, I think people have their own problems to worry about, and they stop worrying about the problems of others, right? I know that's very cynical, and I'm, maybe I am the dark cloud within the silver lining, but I do think that at some point, I mean, you'll see kind of a big outrage today. I think that eventually it'll get to the, at the end of the day, when Rogue releases a product that somebody wants more than they want to make a stand, they'll buy it. I mean, that's the thing. And it doesn't matter who it is. It doesn't matter if it's Rogue or if it's Force 6 or if it's Titan or if it's whatever. I mean, even myself, who has had this personal negative experience with Titan, has gotten to a point today where I'm like, if Titan released something that I wanted, I would buy it. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, whatever. But there was a long time there where I held on to a lot of bitter resentment toward him, and I completely marked him off and said I'd never, and whatever, maybe I'm too easy to
and
whatever. But
another thought on this that might sound better in my head, but like as I flesh this out, feel free to cut me off if it's starting not to make sense. But like with the home gym community, we've, this is maybe not a new market, right? But like the whole, like, I guess, industrial revolution of the home gym community post COVID, right? It's relatively young. And with this whole thing, right? Like the whole mutant metals thing, kind of going back to that, like there really haven't been a lot of situations like that I can recall, at least, back around that time. I know since then there's been a lot of other scenarios, but like we really haven't had a lot of things like that. And because of that, I think
you mean a lot of things, like there haven't been a lot of opportunities for us to wield our torches. Is that what you mean? Yeah. Okay.
Exactly. And because, it worked with the mutant metals, the whole mutant metal situation, right? I think the expectation is there that,
you know what?
Some people is that, yeah.
I don't want to hijack your story, but I'm going to here. You know how Fringe makes those, like the samurai sword and like the He-Man sword and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
They should make a freaking pitchfork and like a steel torch that mace or whatever. Not Fringe. I don't know why. I said Fringe because they make those other weird mace things. But anyway, sorry. Go back.
No, that's hilarious. No, yeah. So there haven't really been a lot of instances where that's happened, and the few times it has, it seems like the mob mentality or the mob is kind of worked in having these bigger companies, kind of back down. Same thing with PRX, right? But it there's going to be a point where it eventually doesn't work, and when that happens, it's like kind of is what it is. I don't know what point I was trying to make with that, but I guess it was just more.
Does it lose its effectiveness? And is it even a good tactic?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Is it a tactic? I don't know if it's a tactic. I don't know if it is. I have felt that way. I get to this place with it sometimes when it's going on, even right now, I feel kind of gross about it. And it's not because I'm I don't even want to talk about it. It's because it will consume so much of my thoughts. You know what I mean? I'm sitting here thinking about gym equipment beef. You know what I mean? And I have my own problems.
Real life problems, right?
You know what I mean? Not that these aren't real life problems. These are other people's real life problems. You know what I mean?
Right. No, yeah, exactly.
I got enough of my own, man, but I've still got, I can't control the brain space that it's taken up. You know what I mean? And so I got to get on a podcast and talk about it in hopes that maybe that'll give me some of my life back. You know what I mean? I'm being a little bit dramatic about it, but ultimately, yeah, I don't love it. I don't love it when it happens, but I do feel like it's, it's a big part of my hobby, my little home gym niche. And it's one of those things that you can't help it when things happen and you get talking about it.
Right.
And all that kind of stuff. I do wish that I do see one of the things I also felt like was different. I mean, there are a lot of people keep talking, and we've talked about the mutant metals parallel, which I don't think is very parallel to this. It's different.
Right.
And maybe I'm being too nitpicky here. There are some one of the differences is I remember the mutant metals thing, at first when they announced the Velocidor thing and showed pictures of it and people started going at Rogue. I remember Bill in the comments, defending it. And he's like, well, we don't, people were like, it's a knockoff. And he's like, we don't see it that way. And he was saying, anybody who's ever used a 3x3 spotter arm with handles in it as a dip attachment, which was evidently what people did before, a rack mounted dip attachment or whatever, was using that, and that the Velocidor was just a variation of that and stuff, and it's there are a lot of these really kind of good arguments and all that stuff about all that stuff. But the difference was he at first was in there kind of defending it, felt like it wasn't going away. And then they were like, we're going to have some and whatever with this thing. It might, maybe it just hasn't happened yet. Cause like I said, man, last night I went to bed thinking, I saw Steve's video a couple of days ago. My heart goes out to them for their experience. I'm very happy that at the end of it, they did get, a secure deal with Rep and even that it was like they did all that before the Rogue thing dropped, which I felt like is a better, and not that there's a great, but at least that was like a partnership that they were forging, that they were working, that they were just not. It wasn't like Rep was like, oh, we feel bad for Kleva, so we're
Right.
gonna reach out to him and make his products, or that Rep was like trying to get in on this,
Capitalize on
this
it,
viral
right.
thing, to make so it is absolutely makes Rep. It shows that Rep at least at least knows the community that they that they care. I mean, I feel like the home gym community, especially those of us who are like uber nerds on the internet, talking about it on a podcast or whatever.
Listening to a podcast.
I feel like I feel like that is a very, very small segment of a small segment of market, and so, but I think that it shows that Rep cares about that, or cares about the business of this small group also, even though I don't know, but I don't remember. I feel like I'm just kind of going off the rails here, but I do think that I think it's different. I wish that Rogue would come out and say, I don't know what they could possibly say that wouldn't lead me down to the same kind of perspective of like, whatever it is that you could say, whatever it is, you could have said that, you know what I mean? Like you could, but it doesn't matter. They don't need my input. You're probably right. They're not going to say a word. They'll just sit back. It'll blow over. They know that it will. And whatever market share they lost, they probably weren't going to get anyway, and they'll be fine. They'll pick it up with other things that they continue to do, to however they acquire new customers and stuff. It'll continue to happen. It's just, it is a good message, I guess, for those who maybe aspire to do business with companies, to maybe consider that the integrity of a company,
maybe
whether that's
be a little less trusting, just be a little bit more cautious,
Yeah.
I would say, like,
Yeah.
probably the better way to put it.
So interestingly, though, with the Rogue, there are other examples of items, right? Like one of them that surfaced, and this was a story that I had heard about before. Maybe I heard about it during the Mutant Metals thing, or maybe had come from somewhere else. And I've heard through others kind of horror stories about Rogue business practices before. I don't know enough about it for me to have ever made like a real opinion about Rogue and their business practices. And there are a bunch of companies who have business practices that maybe don't quite align with what I feel like my values are or my beliefs or whatever, but I don't also, just not do business with all of them just for those reasons alone. But
yeah, I think there's a handful here actually.
yeah, so
of them.
one of them that has kind of resurfaced is, what's her name, Molly, right?
Molly Metz, yeah.
Molly Metz, yeah, and I kind of refreshed my memory on her story today, and she's not like some dude who parks in her garage and has a bunch of crap in the closet to throw together and create something. She's like a 5-time world champion jump roper or whatever, right? And she had kind of came up with a way to improve the jump rope for her discipline, where she added the bearings to it or whatever. She said she had gotten a patent. She showed pictures of her patent and all that stuff. She said that there were some companies who were kind of ripping it off. She was able to reach out, show the patent and all that kind of stuff, and kind of get them to, that they would either take it down or they would start purchasing hers or something like that, and kind of had been making some progress through that when she noticed the same product with her stuff on Rogue's website, which had this huge outreach, and they were making custom ones or every year they would take like their CrossFit athlete or whatever. And I felt a little like, as I was watching that, I was like, man, I've got one of those. I don't ever use it, but I do have one. Somebody's
I'm sharing my screen here, so I don't know if that's visible. Hopefully it's not coming through with sound interrupting. But Molly Metz. So I'm sharing her Instagram here. If anyone wants to go check that out, go to her Instagram. Like her bio, for some reason it doesn't let me click. But like if you go to her bio, she has like literally all of like the entire story of her, like what she went through, right? So she
Yeah.
had a patent on like a bearing system for these particular jump ropes that and this goes all the way back to like 2012 and maybe even like a few years before that. So this has been something that went on quite a while ago. So she had this bearing system that helped make jump ropes more efficient. Again, like you said, she's an expert in the field. She developed this because it helped solve a problem that she had. So yeah, like other companies started producing this, and when she would reach out to them, they would either they would either like buy them from her or be like, oh yeah, sorry, we didn't realize it was patented, and stop doing that until according to her, Rogue came along and started doing it. And I'm not saying like according to her in a bad way or anything. I'm just going off of what I've read. So Rogue comes along, they start doing it, and I forgot what the term was that she mentioned. It's called I forgot what it was. It was called efficient infringement. I think that's what it's called, right? So it's where a larger company comes in. They basically look at they know something's patented. They kind of crunch some numbers and they find that it might be a little bit more efficient for them cost wise to just produce the product and pay any potential fines and fight it in court or whatever because it's something that they would make back tenfold or whatever in sales anyways. So that's what she's claiming happened here, even though she every time she tried reaching out to Rogue, and I guess she was even in talks with Rogue also. She said she had like 4 months of emails with Bill specifically about this whole thing, and like they eventually like started telling her, it's like, yeah, just go talk to our lawyers, and it got to the point where like they did go to court. It did like escalate up. I don't know how many levels until eventually, I think in 2023, like, and again, this whole thing started way back in like like at least around the 2012ish range, maybe a few years before that, but up until 2023, she said she had spent like 5 fighting this in court. Maybe I don't know if specifically with Rogue or if this is just the sum of everything, but um yeah, up to like $500,000 and X amount of years until eventually, like, I guess the courts found that, like, they basically were like, yeah, like, this isn't something that's enforceable. So after all of that, having a patent, supposedly doing everything the right way,
They
like,
nullified her patent. They took her to,
is that what it was?
she took him to court with her patent to say, what I mean? And instead of going to court, what's interesting about her story is that anytime these things come up, right? When it was Kyle, when it was Mutant Metals, it's always
Mhm.
the other response is always, well, you should have had a patent. If you didn't have a
Patent.
patent, nothing, right? Well, she had a patent and she took her patent to court. And instead of the judge looking at it and saying, "Oh, okay, well, you've got a patent and this is the idea and you stole it, so you stop making it, whatever." The Rogue kind of, well, instead of it going that way, they went and their lawyers had contested the validity of her patent. And that's what had happened was they invalidated her patent in court. So Rogue won that and she's
Okay,
been
yeah, that's what it
fighting
was.
it that way since. So
Yeah, and
kind of
also
a
her whole thing now, I guess, like, is not specifically like about the jump ropes anymore. Like her whole thing is like trying to like go out there and like help people, like inventors, you navigate the patent process and things like that. I think that that's like her whole mission now. It's not specifically about the jump ropes, but that's like kind of like
right.
her, yeah,
Yeah.
the thing
Yeah.
that she's like doing now.
Yeah, because it sucks, man. I mean, it's just like with Darko and with Kyle and it's like you don't have 10 grand to buy a patent, and even if you do,
Minimum.
yeah, even if you do, it doesn't mean you're protected, and it doesn't mean that when a company, bigger company like Rogue or whatever, and you decide, you know what, I'm gonna, like in her case, in Molly's case, she sold her business. She had to get rid of her business. She had to put her, instead of like teaching the kids that she was teaching, she had to send them to other coaches and things like that so that she could focus her money and time and effort and energy into fighting this thing that she believed in. And so when a company comes in and now you've got not only your patent that you paid for, but now you're funding all this money to try to defend your patent, right, against a company who has means that you don't have. It's just a shitty process, man. And it's like it makes you like, why would anybody want to get into that space? You know what I mean? Like, and I
Hmm.
guess it's one of those things, like in business school, you do those like SWOT analysis and stuff, and I guess this is one of those threats that, to entering a market. I guess it's a threat I don't think I would have thought of. You know what I mean? Like, even if I were, I was, barriers to entry, or this and that, whatever. But I don't know if I would have thought like, I'm going to come up with a product to protect myself, and then a company with no money, lawyers can just come in and out spend me until I either give up or my patent is null and void or whatever. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's just a
I mean,
crazy thing
yeah,
all the way around.
and I think like with the Kleva situation, like like at the end of the day, the fact that they are partnered with Rep like is a really fortunate situation here, because like obviously Molly didn't have that luxury, right, of having another large player in the industry kind of at least kind of back them in that way.
I wonder though, and I'm not trying to stir up shit here or anything. I would like I wonder how. So I know I've never spoken directly with Chris from Mutant Metals, but I have heard heard his opinion on uh, things like this, and I wonder what his thoughts are on this with Rogue, and how, what his reaction is to it.
Yeah, he
Being somebody
actually
who did you have you
he just
has
did
he
a no. I haven't talked to him lately, but he just did a podcast with the Kurt Locker, like literally a day or two,
oh
maybe
after so
sometime this
since
week. I don't
this
remember exactly. Yeah, I don't know if it was before or after like the added information with the Cleva Rogue stuff came out, but maybe he talks about it there. I haven't had a chance to listen
no
to that one yet.
I haven't I've
It's been on my
I've
list of
watched a
things
couple
to
of
get through.
those podcasts, but I haven't seen that one. I think I might have seen that he was on one. I don't know. But I would be curious to know what his thoughts are on it. So, or maybe, I mean, someone who has had a positive working experience with Rogue, in something similar. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And how they feel about all of it, and maybe they could. I mean, I don't know. Probably, I just don't suspect. Again, I don't feel like Rogue will. I don't feel like they. I feel like they if they owe anybody an explanation, it would be Steve and Sierra, not us. The
Right.
talking heads. But it would be, I don't know. I still think that there's nothing that they could say that I would be like, oh shit, no, well that makes sense. You know what I mean? I still feel like they could have, that companies can work things out with people, and you know what I mean? Not, but just,
Right.
when
Like
when
I feel.
Titan, after a long time of feeling like I was getting ghosted, and I was afraid they were stealing. I mean, they had my thing for like 9 months. I mean, that's why they sent me one, right? I did. I was like, man, they stole my shit. And whenever I got it back, it was obvious they had like torn it apart and put it back together wrong and broken some things, and there were missing parts. And I mean, they obviously did things with it, right? I don't know. It was like I got it back from an alien abduction or whatever. And so you do deserve at least them to give you the bad news that they're not going to make the product for whatever reason it is. You know what I mean? They should at least tell you that.
Right. Right. No. Yeah. Yeah.
Whatever they
Especially
do
like
thereafter sucks
people's
too, but
livelihood.
yeah, people
People's
are,
livelihood is at stake.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
they're putting things on hold. Like contingent on this. So it's like at least have the courtesy to like break the news. Like sooner rather than later, instead of just
yeah,
kind of stringing things along.
yeah,
And
yeah. Have a process for
like
that.
yeah, and I'm still kind of sorting through this, right? I don't have like my thoughts on this are kind of like fluid, back and forth, back and forth. Obviously, Rogue
Yeah, yeah,
Rogue could have handled this better, but like at this like and I talked a little bit about like, the mob mentality thing, it's like we're all like the home gym community is kind of like rallying behind this, right? And we were saying like, well, at what point does that like not become effective anymore, and like does it become overused, and to the point where it's not
right.
really effective anymore? But like at the same time, like I feel like the industry is like kind of young enough, like at least with like where we don't have like Rogue's the only really massive player here, right? I feel like they can kind of set the precedent. And again, I'm still kind of thinking through this now as
Hmm.
I'm speaking it. I mean, maybe like they can set the precedent, of like partnering with people, and like
I feel like
them
Rep is
and
doing
Rep.
that. I feel
Right.
like
But like
Rep is doing that.
if if that kind of keeps happening, like I don't know, it's like until there's like an Amazon type company that comes in that that even dwarfs Rogue size, and like there's an Amazon Basics version of all of this stuff. Like I feel like these companies aren't really big enough to the point where like that might not be effective. You know what I mean?
I feel like it. I feel like it loses its steam when it's expected of companies to do that. The reason why people are up in arms and weirded out and angry and all that kind of stuff and canceling Rogue is because it's not what we expect from Rogue, right?
Right.
Plain and simple. I
And
mean, if Bells of Steel did it, we would be
perfect
like,
transition.
people would be praying for that, right? I mean, there are people who wait for it to come out on Temu. There are people who wait for the Donnie Thompson fat pad to be offered on the rep website. There are people who wait for that because they want the lower cost alternative or whatever. Do you know what I mean? And so
Right.
when it
Yeah.
becomes normal is when people stop getting outrageous. And so hopefully I don't know,
And
I can deal
maybe
with the little bit of stress that it puts me in for the sake of
yeah, and
others.
think that there's a
So
face behind the other side too.
for
Like
sure.
I mentioned this before. Anytime we talk about products being ripped off, I'm going to go on this soapbox.
Yeah.
The Rogue Rower again. Again, I love Concept 2 as a company. Like I think they're like everything. Like everything that's right with small businesses, right?
Yeah.
But like here specifically, Rogue, they were probably the biggest distributor of Concept 2 rowers for the past 10 plus years at minimum, right?
Yeah. They probably had
Especially
they had some sort of an agreement, right? And so you wonder from Concept 2, did they learn about this with the rest of us, or was this like a,
exactly.
hey guys, we're going to give you 5 years, and at the end of the 5 years, we're going to, probably do our own thing. But you know what I mean?
Yeah, and the whole thing with like the rogue ethos is being innovators, like making things in the USA, like supporting American manufacturing, but then they turn around and here they are, talking about like
Right.
right
They
here. They're
compare it
specifically
directly comparing it
yeah,
to,
they're like this can be used alongside Concept 2. We worked with third-party engineering, to verify everything, matches up
right.
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Meanwhile, this is not
They,
made in the USA so
right.
that they can undercut the price. And I know there's a million rowers out there, right? And
Yeah.
again, like they're all ripoffs of Concept 2, right?
For
But
sure,
like
but
the
I don't
fact that
think
it
they
comes
all
from Rogue,
advertise it that. Yeah, it comes from Rogue, and I don't think
yeah,
they're advertised as that, do they? I mean, maybe they do. Maybe I have no idea, but I do. I know what you mean. When you pointed this stuff out, I didn't put that much attention to it before, and I don't think anybody else did either. I mean, it definitely didn't create outrage, but when you talked about this before, I was like, oh man, you're absolutely right. I did notice that they were. I just looked at it like they were reassuring their base that you can buy this one and it will still perform in your competitions and things like that as the same way that you always understand. That's I kind of probably felt that's probably what their intention was, and I fell for that. But you're looking at it and I see it as like, yeah, no, you're totally just undercutting this U.S. made company and all that kind of stuff. Don't tell me about
yeah.
whatever, but
USA, made in USA. No, at least they advertise that. But like with
right.
anything else they make that's made in the USA, made in USA, yes, is going to be a banner item for them. Here they kind of tried to hide it a little bit,
I,
and
I feel like that
anyone,
I feel like that came as a result of some community outrage, right? With the Canadian uprights or whatever, the Canadian steel that they,
yeah,
whatever
yeah,
they, everybody was under the impression everything was made in the USA. They were importing some Canadian steel. It was marked, and there was a community outrage with Rogue on that, and that's where the more clearly written "Made in USA" stuff came to be on the website.
hmm
So, for some people that's important. For some, it's not. I know I've got a friend who is very deliberate in correcting people when they say like, "Oh no, it's made by Rep." Like, actually, Rep doesn't make anything. Nothing that they sell is made by Rep.
yeah,
It's 100% imported. And I'm like, okay, but
yeah.
some
And
people really do care about that.
another little tangent actually about the rogue rower. I don't think we talked about this last time, but I spent a lot of time actually kind of digging into this. So I think they have something on here where it might say patent pending.
Oh.
So like the quick release straps. So they added a patent to that. Also patent pending design. So I like was doing some research on Google Patents and found that for all of you people who are like Rogues the best because they manufacture in the USA.
Mm.
The things that they're patenting here, so the quick release foot strap, I think the fold up design specifically, that's the big differentiator. Is this right here? All of these were patents. I think it was by like a Chinese inventor. The patents are in Chinese specifically. And like Rogue, I don't know if they purchased them or like they co-signed it or whatever,
Right.
but it's like there's nothing about this that is like all of the all of the unique attributes of this
Yeah.
are not
Are only
are
unique
either
to Rogue.
yeah are either direct ripoffs of Concept 2 or they were offshore
Oh.
overseas,
So to me,
innovation. So I think that's
thing,
hilarious.
the fold up thing, the design of it, the wheels, all of that stuff, it looks. I may be wrong. I could just.
It's
But
honestly overrated.
isn't there one at
It's
Costco
overrated.
that looks like that? I'm gonna.
Yeah, so like a lot of them do fold up. Like the non-concept 2 like ones, like a lot of the magnetic resistance ones. And I thought this was going to be a positive, to be honest with you, but it's kind of clunky to fold it up that way. And even when you like maneuver it around and you like have to unfold it, it's
Mhm.
actually a lot easier to just take apart a Concept 2 rower just because of how light and um like easy it is to take apart. It's easier to take apart the Concept 2 and store it away than it is to fold this up and wheel it around.
Oh yeah, the Concept 2 is great, man, and it that's the reason that they don't
And I
change the
bought this Rogue rower,
design
by
of
the
it.
way.
Yeah, I feel like you had told me that, like when it first came out or something like that.
And I
For
also have a Concept 2, so I
yeah,
have them both. I wanted to compare them directly, and that's kind of what sparked a lot of my
yeah. I
annoyance here.
think
But anyways, yeah.
okay, so it's not it's the Pro form. I think is the one that I was thinking of.
Yeah, there's a few of them that fold
There's
up like
the
that.
yeah, and it looks it has a very similar design, and it's not exactly the same. Very similar. I don't know, um, but anyway, yeah, no, the Concept 2 is the goat, but there will still be people who buy the Rogue, but I just don't.
Yeah, and I think I don't know this for sure. I think Rogues like came out after the patent, like the like because I think Concept 2 had something patented, and I read this somewhere. I don't know if it was just a comment or what, but I think there was a patent involved, and once the patent expired, jumped on all over it, right? But I
Mm,
mean, again, nothing illegal, but is it really
right.
like
All right. So
anyway?
Kleva Concept 2. Who else have they? They do have their pad with Donnie Thompson, and it's everybody else that has a fat pad, right?
Yeah,
And
so
so
that's
that's.
actually fun. Funny you bring that up. I'll pull this up here.
I'm just trying to think of
Oh,
what are all the other ones that we know. For a minute there, I was thinking that.
well, that yeah. So like Donnie Thompson, like this actually just came out today. He's calling out rep, and he specifically says that he next week spells a steel and tighten the following or something like that for ripping off his fat pad, right? And because his whole thing I think was like that he came out with the fat pad, right? And then Rogue partnered with him and they manufacture it. They have the official Thompson fat pad. And then now like basically every company, right, has a wider pad. Although I don't know if the specs are exactly the same. I don't know if it's I don't know too much about it, to be honest with you, but I just think
It's
it's interesting that everyone is, at least right now they're like, reps the gold standard here, but here there's another opinion of things, where it's like he's specifically like saying the opposite. I
it,
don't it's probably inspired by all the Rogue stuff, right? But
it's inspired by his fat pad for sure. He's
mhm.
been pretty vocal. Nobody had a fat pad. Nobody wanted to have the fat pad. When he first made the fat pad, dude's huge, right? I mean, he's a large person. And when he
Mhm.
first made the fat pad, it was for people his size. He was like, why wouldn't it make sense for a very large person? Think about, I'm 5'11". Should I be? Should I be on the same size weight bench or whatever as like Brian Shaw or whatever, right? A huge person. It makes sense that your bench might, you might use a different size bench or whatever. It might need some support from a wider bench. And that's where it started at, right? And it kind of, because it's on Rogue site and all that kind of stuff, but it wasn't very well received by like, especially by like the powerlifting community, because it does inflate your ability to bench press more weight, right? It'll give you a false sense of strength because you get, support
Extra support, right?
behind your shoulders and all that kind of stuff. It's not competition approved and all that kind of stuff or whatever. But he's always maintained that he's weathered the storm, proven the concept. People buy it, people like it for all sizes, right? That people and I know people. I've had the fat pad. I had that Monster Utility 2.0 or whatever short bench with the fat pad on it. For me, it was a little too much. I ended up getting rid of it, but I get rid of a lot of things. It's just one that I got rid of and didn't buy again. But I know people who swear by it, but I know Vulcan has there now because it has gained popularity after 2020 or maybe before. I don't know, but Vulcan, Bells of Steel, Rep, everybody has it's a bench pad, but it's wider, and that's been the general sentiment. And it's one of those things that I can't explain, but it's a phenomenon that we see. Sometimes people take heavy inspiration from an existing product, and there are sometimes where that really triggers people's emotions. There are sometimes where groups of people have been praying for that to happen so that they can afford it. And there are sometimes where people just don't care. You know what I mean? And that's a good example of one of those products that for whatever reason never seems to have sparked a lot of emotion, at least not as much emotion as what it does with Donnie.
Right.
And I get it.
Not a lot of community backlash, right? Specifically.
I get it, man, because that's his thing, right? Like
right.
he put in the work to bring that to the market in whatever capacity. Okay, so there's the mutant metals, there's Molly, there's what else do we have?
So this one I don't know a lot about either. I've just remember I've seen a few things on it. The Rogue multi belt. So this is their belt squat belt with like the multiple like connection points. So that specifically, I guess like, and again, I don't recall exactly off the top of my head like what happened with this. I vaguely remember hearing about it a while ago, but I guess Brian Hennessy, like the Henny Squat Max inventor, he had his hip belt here, and I guess he was also in talks with Rogue. I don't know, so I think it goes back to the Squat Max because Rogue did sell the Squat Max at one point. I think it might have just been the rack mounted version.
Rack mounted version, right?
Again, the details are blurry. Yeah. So ultimately, I guess after a while, they decided to end the partnership because they wanted to come out with their Rhino or something. Okay, I don't remember. But then part of this also was there was something to do with the Henny belt specifically, and then Rogue did they roguified their own version of it, right? So I don't know if part of their talks and if it was related to just the Squat Max or if it had to do with the Henny hip belt, but I think that there is a lot of similar parallels with everything we've talked about going on here with Rogue and with that occurred here with this particular product. But yeah, I mean, to be honest, like, and again, this has nothing to do with even like the moral ethical side of things. I do think the Henny hip belt is a lot more comfortable, to be honest with you. So just throwing that out there for anyone who might be listening to this. I do get questions about this from time to time, so just going on the record, I do think the Henny hip belt is the more comfortable belt. Yeah, so we had some technical difficulties. We lost Jason there for a little bit, but I was talking about the Rogue multi belt and the Henny hip belt. So hopefully we cut all that before we cut off.
I did hear quite a bit. I don't know how much of it, but so what is the difference between? I mean, I had the Rogue one. I didn't love it. I didn't feel it was very comfortable. But maybe belt squats just aren't a comfortable thing to do. But what are the main differences? I know because I've heard like Kurt talk about how much the Henny belt is considerably better than any of the others.
Yeah. So So the better thing about Rogues is that they have like the metal rings as the connection points, and that's just a little easier to hook on than just
It
the
is
fabric
easier. It
hoops,
would
right? So
be easier.
that's the only thing that I think that Rogues does better. But it's a very minor thing. Like the most important thing, in my opinion, with a belt squat belt is the comfort, right? So the padding on the Henny belt, it's not softer, but it's like I think it has a little bit more padding. That might be it. But like I think the thing that plays the big factor there is that the dimensions of the belt, like it's like wider, so it takes up more surface area when it's sitting on your hip and
Okay.
sitting on your hips. So it distributes the force over a large.
I found the Rogue one to be very stiff. Maybe I didn't get enough time with it. You know what I mean? Before I got rid
It
of it,
is a
but
lot stiffer, yeah.
it's very stiff, and even the fabric that makes contact sounds really. It sounds really weird to talk about it like that when you're talking about like a belt squat, right? Like this is I'm like Louis Simmons. Like imagine Louis Simmons talking about the fabric on his
Right.
belt squat belt, just chafing his skin or something like that. Is what I realize what a puss I am whenever I'm talking about this. But yeah, I just didn't. It was just I just wasn't impressed with what I paid for it and all that kind of stuff. I thought I had also, but I replaced the Spud ink one with that because I thought the Spud ink one was too long that I had. I was like, well, maybe for my setup that I was doing, I don't have a like a Rhino or a Squat
Was
Max
that
or whatever.
was that the Spud Ink pillow belt, or was that just
No, it
like
was
one of
like their
the standard
original.
ones?
Yeah, one of the
Okay.
originals. And it's not adjustable or anything like that. It's just you buy like small, medium, or large. And if I had a legit belt squat, it would have been fine. It was just that trying to makeshift something as close to what I can get with what I've got. And oftentimes that means you're standing on things and you need to find the right link. The adjustable thing at least gave me some peace of mind and be able to get it all the way down, all that kind of
Right.
stuff. So
No,
that,
yeah,
that
and
was the allure. But
Spud Ink also has like their pillow belt, which it was made in conjunction with the Henny hip belt.
mm,
So it's basically it's very similar. It's just the padding on
made,
that one's a little bit softer, but
made a
it still has that smaller it's
profile or whatever.
even though the padding's softer, I do find it to be a little less comfortable than the hip belt also for that reason.
I've always wanted one that's like a girdle or almost, you know what I mean? That like really puts the weight at your center, and
Yeah.
instead of it pulling, because I feel like it's always kind of pulling on your back, your lower back and stuff like that. I feel like it pulling straight down on your hips and stuff would feel better. But I don't know if that would be, it'd be more like a goblet squat or something, maybe. I don't know, but it seems like it would
Yeah.
feel really good if you
And
could get something
that's the whole
probably.
thing with like a squat max versus a rhino. The rhino is always going to be directly below
I
and
just,
not like
yeah, I just feel like it's always going to pull from the front. Do you know what I mean? Maybe not. Maybe because I've always used makeshift belt squat. I've used a Rhino. I feel like the Rhino it's kind of hard to get in the right position, But I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe not when you own one. Maybe you find it. But
yeah, it's not bad. Like with me, like I had the rhino first. Like this rhino that I got was from some guy in like right outside of Boulder, and he was selling it because he was downsizing his CrossFit gym, even though I think the CrossFit gym was struggling, but he had the Rhino in his garage, so he was
mm,
selling stuff off, to kind of just
yeah,
make some extra cash or something. But yeah, it was a great deal, and I guess he was buddies, like unrelated, but like he was buddies with Josh Bridges, like a big CrossFit guy.
yeah,
Like not big. He's like not a big guy, but he like a big name in the CrossFit space. And he was like,
right.
yeah, Josh and I used to work out with this Rhino all the time. So cool little story behind my Rhino. But anyway, but yeah, had that, and I didn't have any issues with it. I was like, yeah, this is awesome. I love this Rhino for belt squatting until Home Gym Con year one. Then there was a squat max there with Brian Hennessy. Like he took it on his own. This was before the partnership with Titan, and I was like, hey, I'll give it a shot. I'll get on it, and as soon as I started squatting on it, I was like, wow, this feels like. And again, this is for me personally. It's not going to be the same for everyone. I have
It
a wider
is
stance
not.
anyway,
It is. It's for everyone. But
but
no, keep going.
yeah, I was like, wow, this feels so much better. Like to squat, like I don't. I
Yeah.
didn't notice like the sheer and again, on the Rhino, like if you're not comparing it side by side, you won't really notice it, right? Like I was completely happy with it until I tried a squat max, and the comparison's the thief of joy, and that's kind of what happened there. I was like, since then, I was like, I always had a little bit of FOMO until a squat max came up for sale, and I ended up getting that, and now I have both. Like
So
they both do different things that I like.
you're not the only person that I've heard that from. And I'm not just the guy that invented the Squat Max, but I've heard like real actual people say the same thing, that there's a guy that I've hoarded out some of my gym equipment on the Marketplace, which remind me, I have an interesting story about Marketplace. He has bought several of my items on multiple occasions. He's a cool dude. We end up talking for too long about gym stuff. He's a big power lifter, or a recovering power lifter, I guess. And anyway, he swears by the Squat Max. He's had the Rhino, and he's had the Pit Shark, and he's had, what is the other one? One of the other ones. Anyway, he swears up and down, and I've heard this from others. Kurt says the same thing, but others too, that the Squat Max, the original, the US made one, right? The PA made Squat Max, hands down, has the best feel for a squat. Like they say, like all the other things that they try to squeeze out of it, is just kind of like trying to make it like an everything max or whatever. But for
I like the
squat,
seal.
for
I like the
replicating,
seal row.
yeah, well, seal rows are
That
right,
it's
but you're not going to buy that. You wouldn't say
no,
that
no, no.
that's the best thing for
Yeah.
seal
No,
rows
yeah,
or whatever.
yeah.
But
And I don't necessarily use it for seal row specifically. It's just like a chest supported row. Like I'll angle the pad down, stand off the side, and just it's a quicker, easier setup than having to set it up on my rack. And at least I get the chest
for sure.
support too, which is great.
Yeah, and it's got little J cups or whatever. So that is a cool feature of it, that they took advantage of that. But one of the differences, just while we're on the topic of the Squat Max, one of the differences between the PA, the US made one, and the Titan one is that the US made one has an oval shape for the hole cutout, where Titan is round. And so one of the differences between the Titan and the US made original Squat Max MD is the shape of the hole on the top of it. So the Titan has a round hole, and the PA US made one has an oval hole. And the reason for that is to allow the plates to pass through without bumping or touching, or limited risk of bumping or touching and stuff. So you'll see oftentimes on videos people using the Titan one, where like a 45-pound plate, they might struggle to get full depth, or they might struggle to get the plates through the hole without tapping the sides or something like that. But on the US made one, it doesn't do that. Titan changed a few of the little details, I guess, to make it profitable or something like that. And so if you see that on videos of someone using it, or if someone makes that complaint or anything like that, it's not ever been, even hasn't really been a huge complaint. I thought it was at one time. I've actually had some conversation with the dude that owns the Squat Max, and he explained all that to me and showed me some video and differences and things like that. So I felt informed. It felt like it was a good conversation. Anyway, earlier you mentioned Josh Bridges, your dude that you bought your thing from, when we were talking about the Rogue jump ropes, and I was like, I have one of those, man, and it's got some dude's beard on it. It's that guy. It's that Josh Bridges guy. I got it because it was green. It was like a olive green. I'm a weirdo. I really like olive green and black and the like kind of coyote tan color. But I have to really, with this many tattoos and this much beard and my proximity to the Department of Veterans Affairs, where I work in my day job, I've got to be really careful about wearing too much olive drab and coyote tan. So anyway, Marketplace. One of the things, as I'm jumping to a whole nother topic here, if you have ever purchased anything for your home gym on Marketplace, there's a good possibility you've done so through either like the any of those, like the Rogue Recycler or the powerlifting. You know what I'm talking about? Those groups within
those Facebook
Marketplace,
groups.
Facebook groups and stuff. Now,
like selling groups specifically.
Yeah, they're like selling groups specifically for several different. No, they're the guy who for different products or types of products and stuff. The guy who runs those, or who kind of admins those or whatever. I'm not going to mention his name, Mark, because he's pretty. He kind of keeps a low profile on the internet and stuff. But he reached out to me to encourage me to join a new platform that he has started, and it looks pretty cool. It's in its like infancy state. It's called Fitness Relocation. I'll share my screen. I'm going to show you this thing, or anybody that if you are ever in the used market.
Yeah,
Or whatever this
while
might
you're
be.
pulling that up, yeah, he reached out to me via the contact me section of my website. So I was filtering through all the spam, and I saw his, and I was like, oh wow, this is really cool. Like he's definitely one of the few non-spam entries I've had on that contact me section of my website. So that was really cool. That it was actually utilized correctly for once.
Trying to see which one of these. I'm sorry, I'm trying to share a screen. Okay, so this is what it's technically. You go through his link, and it'll have you download an app. And this is basically, for whatever reason, this is like the website, but it's what the app looks like also. And so it's kind of cool. Like I said, it's in its infancy state. I've kind of looked through it a little bit. He and I went through some troubleshooting on. I created a problem, and we were able to find the solution to it. So if you go, here's what I did. I opened it up, and I was like, shit, I don't have time for this right now, and I closed it down. Like after I clicked something, closed it out, and then whenever I went back in, it was like, I don't know if it was like my cookies or my cache or something like that, but it kept acting as if I already had an account set up and that I needed to go in and verify it or something like that. And it kind of took me through what I called the 7 circles of hell, because it just kept taking me back and forth and through and stuff. So my point is, when you go to sign up, make sure that you have time. You answer like fill out your name and your email address, and then you have to go in and get like a code or something like that. So it's got a little bit of a security measure to it. There's a vetting process, right? So you're not just dealing with. I mean, I'm not saying there aren't creeps on here. I don't know, there might be, but at least those creeps have been vetted to some degree through this process. But my point is, if you're signing up for it, it takes like 2 seconds. Go in, sign up, don't do what I did and stop. But if you do, the trick is to go into it and then go, like if you're on your phone or whatever, you don't have to clear your cookies or your cache or whatever. I don't even know if there are cookies on the phone. But you just go into like on the iPhone, the option to, let me get the words straight here. Sorry. The option to request a desktop site, and that will allow you to kind of bypass that and go back through the original way. But once you get
And
into it,
you were doing this through the app originally?
I did it through the app originally, yeah. And like I said, you click his link, and then from there you have to, was a landing page that kind of gave you some basic rules. He may have changed it by now, but it gave you some kind of basic rules. And then when you go through, there's a process where it like verifies your email or something like that with a code.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And I stopped somewhere in the middle of that, and there's must be like a timing requirement or something like that. I don't know, but I got hung up because whenever I went back to it later, I was kind of hung up. So, but once you get into it, it looks like it's going to be pretty cool. I mean, it's already got some people. Here's
Yeah, I'm in there somewhere.
D.
I registered via
Were you
I was on my computer, so it was pretty quick and easy. I didn't have any issues.
Here's Big Carp.
There we go.
Big Carp's in there already. Who else we got? There's Kurt. Let me just finding. This is like Facebook, MySpace. I guess this is my top 8 over here. But it's pretty cool. I like the way that it's going to be. Like here's like barbell category. If you're just looking for barbells, you don't have to scroll. Like on the Facebook thing, you have to scroll through 1,000 things that, whatever, looking to see if there's something you might like. It looks a little bit more well put together, and I think that once people start really putting stuff on there, it's going to be something pretty cool. Belt strap wrap.
And he definitely made it really clean looking too, really easy to navigate.
Yeah.
Like for those like me, the only reason I still have Facebook is because of Marketplace and because of the Facebook group, like the home gym group, right? If it wasn't for either of those two things, I would have deleted my account long ago.
Yeah.
So I mean, something like this, I think it definitely has appeal for those who don't feel as strongly tied to those two areas as I do.
And it's cool because he's got, the guy that's running it has got so much experience with these not just
Like,
in home gym, but he has manned several different types. I know he had told me he does used like electronics, like podcast equipment, things like that,
oh, really?
and some other stuff too. Yeah, I don't remember he rattled off like 15 different ones
Oh,
that he
geez.
does and stuff, and I was like, wow, dude, that
Cause
seems
yeah,
like a
cause
lot.
he has like 5 different just gym related ones on
And
Facebook alone, right?
yeah, yeah, and also he has some level of like minimum threshold that has to be met. Like for example, he won't like if someone tries to sell like Prime knockoffs, or if they try to sell Rogue knockoffs or something like that, like you can't sell that shit on here. Get that shit out of here. No
Hmm.
copper on this table or whatever. I don't know. I don't know what that expression is. I'm not a gambler, but I anyway, that is that, and I thought that was pretty cool. Here's Josh Bridges' mustache. Uh, I had to look it up because I was like, I think that's the guy.
Yeah,
I've met this dude at the
Rogue Invitational.
Rogan. Yeah, yeah. They just walk around and stuff, and he had a weird group of people. I mean, like there were people following him around, like he was famous or whatever. But and there are some of them where you're just kind of sitting there and you're like, look over and you're like, oh shit, that's that guy. That was
I was on
just
stage
out
earlier.
there. Yeah, yeah. And anyway, there's that. Yeah, and there's the pro form. All right. What else we got, man? You got?
I got one more thing actually. So I'm gonna grab this screen share.
Yeah. Let me.
So this is to tie it back to inventors and partnering with companies and anyone who might be feeling a little discouraged. So I want to leave on a kind of a positive note here. I don't know if you caught this.
I did.
So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So this just came out today, like 6 hours ago, as of the 20.
I just read that as double felt the load, but but now I see it's double the felt load. I really thought I was like wow, what are we sharing? I thought maybe you might have shared it on
Yeah,
screen.
yeah. So
I really did. I read
anyway,
that. I was like,
um,
oops, wrong one.
so like we spent a good chunk of today, right, talking about horror stories. Some people have had with Rogue. Obviously a lot of successes people have had with partnering with Rogue and partnering with Rep. So what happened like with Kyle here? So this is kind of a little bit of hope core to kind of end the episode. So obviously kind of relevant in the current state of things. Collaboration over competition. So Kyle had made this DIY video, right, of this belt squat stand that he connected to his Bells of Steel cable tower, right? And he utilized a like this technique here where you hook the pulley up not at the end of the cable, but you interloop it. And what that does is it essentially doubles the resistance, right?
Yeah,
Instead of like cutting the resistance in half, like 2-to-1 ratio pulleys, this here doubles the resistance, right? So because of that there, I guess it inspired Larry at Bulletproof to do something similar with his belt squat box that he's developing here. And because he was inspired by Kyle, he reached out to Kyle and was like, "Hey, I wanna like put like pay for a vacation for you or something, like send you somewhere nice because that was a great idea that I saw from you first, and I don't know if you invented it or what, um which whatever happened there, but like I got this idea from you that I'm going to implement on my product. I'm going to send you somewhere nice, and on top of that, once we start selling these, I do want to compensate you in some way, so there is there is some positive stuff going out there. And then Kyle also on top of that was like, hey, I actually got this idea from the guys at Dialed Motion, so just FYI, if you want to send me somewhere nice, let's include them also because I got that from them specifically. So a little bit of hope core there, like, yeah, don't be like, if you're an inventor, like, you know, not every company out here is, trying to be predatory. A lot of these companies, like they, especially ones here that are innovating new products, like might be more inclined to partner than not. So I do want to add a little bit of something here though, also related to this whole belt squat pulley system doing something like this. I actually pitched something similar, like, and it was inspired by Kyle also to another company, and they basically were like, oh yeah, that's a really cool idea, but it doesn't seem like it's something that we would have any interest in at the moment, right? And with that, I kind of, I mean, and again, like I wasn't like going into it, thinking like I invented this. I was like, hey, this could be something, like that you add on to an existing product to differentiate your thing here. And I specifically referenced Kyle's stuff, so I wasn't like trying to take credit or anything. And yeah, like they were like, yeah, not something we're interested in, but here, bulletproof, like they're they saw the value in that, right? So I mean, if you have an idea, you get shot down by one company, like don't let that discourage you. Go to another company. I mean, obviously, like, be careful about it, with the whole like with the whole, Kleva thing that we just discussed, that's definitely a cautionary tale, but there are there are opportunities out there, and just because someone doesn't see the value, someone else might. So
Yeah,
that was kind of that.
that's good. I mean that's good advice there. There are if you're I wanted you to tell me what's going on in that video. I just watched that loop like 47 times and I still don't know because I haven't read any of that. So what
Oh,
was
okay,
happening there?
yeah.
Go back to that and tell me walk me walk me through that video. I see Kyle. Hold on.
Yeah,
Okay, so
so
here's Kyle double feeling the load. Then
yeah.
it's going to flip over to him saying, "Hey, I really appreciate. Wait, I appreciate you showing me how to double fill the load, and I want to do something cool." And then why is Kyle swimming? Did he send? He's already sent him somewhere where there's snorkeling.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
And
because
who is
Larry's
this?
like, I wanna send you somewhere nice.
Oh, okay, so he hasn't done it yet, but that's somewhere. That's
Yeah, and Kyle
representative of somewhere nice.
Kyle wanted to put some
Okay.
B-roll of him snorkeling,
Okay. All
maybe
right. All
give some
right.
ideas as to where he would like to go.
Okay. And so
It's this concept here, right? Like that bulletproof's
yeah,
trying
no,
to
yeah,
incorporate.
right.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
And
Okay.
then
I thought
yeah,
he
this is
had
the bulletproof
I thought it
product.
was like, oh, he sent him to like
No,
Mexico or
yeah.
something. And then okay, and so the other two guys standing inside the rack are the dialed motion guys. And who's
Yep,
she?
and
Who what's what
that's
how does she fit into the
Larry's
story?
sister. So I guess that's
Oh, this is what Larry's working on. Okay. All right. Cool. All right.
one
All
of their
right.
factories in China, I think, where they're prototyping it. Because I think he might be in China right now, actually, or
Okay.
he was
Cool.
earlier this week. And then the dialed motion guys, like
Right.
Kyle's
But
put, and
he's
Kyle has a voiceover throughout this whole video, so
I
it all
I
makes sense if
I'm
you listen to it with sound.
I'm going with double. I think we should make our own version of it, just with the audio we just created there. Okay, I like it. I mean, that's awesome. And yes, of course, for people like Kyle, for people like Steve and Sierra and them that are generally positive people that are, I am happy to see that is that they are reaping the benefits of that and that other people are taking to that also and that they're finding those types to work with. And there are lots of those in the community, even when it feels like the narrative is driven by those negative experiences that a few
Hmm.
people have very infrequently. And like we had kind of landed on earlier, if it's what I mean, none of us really love it, right? I don't think that any of us look forward to, but we do. It does occupy this brain space. And if that's what we have to do to keep it from feeling normal, that companies just, whatever the story on their side of it is, it feels, it left a shitty taste in people's mouths. And, as soon as that becomes normal, then the whole home gym community thing would suck a little bit worse. So hopefully that doesn't ever get there. So anyway, I'm just going to stop talking now and encourage everybody to go to Home Gym Con.
There we go.
All right, man. Do you have anything else? I don't have anything else. Thanks for
Uh,
watching if you made it
yeah,
this far.
nothing.
I'm going to go hang out with the kids, man. I'll talk to you later.
All right, sounds good, man. See ya.
See you.